there we are. So tell me when we're on. Good girl. Oh, look how good you are.
Any countdowns or anything?
Well, I don't have the time of day. I'm live right now. There may be people watching already.
Microphone. Nobody's hearing you.
Hello. Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel. And I want to welcome you to there we go. Can you hear me now? Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel. You don't hear anything, huh?
Don't talk to me.
All right. Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel, and we're here today talking about pet angst. Naughty or nice, you know, it's the holidays. Christmas tree, green shirt, and my excellent girl dog, Miss America. Well, things can go wrong on the holidays. And I've been there. Back when I was 4 years old, I was visiting another family with my folks, my big sister Martha, and they had the cutest Boston Terrier. And I thought that dog was wonderful because, well, I didn't have a dog. So here we were, and you know, we had folks are sitting at the card table playing gin rummy, I think, and having iced tea. And my sister and our friend Kenny were off playing tiddlywinks, who the heck knows. And I was all about that little Boston Terrier. Well, he was under the table where my folks and their friends were playing cards. And I got down on all fours just like any good 4-year-old. I was going to go check out that little dog and give him a good hug and a kiss. And as I snuck up on that little guy, and I was just about to really show him my affection, and he growled with extreme brevity and bit me on the cheek. Well, you know, that did change the tone of that little holiday. And of course, everybody was yelling at the dog and explaining what you need to do with dogs who bite children. And of course, nobody understood it, least of all me, at my young age. But you know, I started thinking about how much I loved dogs then. And at age 8, I decided I wanted to be a veterinarian. And through many years in general practice and taking continuing education in behavior, ultimately I developed enough interest and enough caseload that I decided that I wanted to make a career shift. And so I did a residency in veterinary behavior medicine. Now I'm a specialist. And I understand what happened under that table, and I can see how it can happen in almost any holiday gathering when there are guests in a home and a lot of commotion and excitement and kids and all that stuff, and you get a dog that's a little bit afraid and a little bit nervous because things are different than they are in the normal boring day-to-day of a regular household. And so that little dog was under that table because he needed a safe, secure spot. For him, it was a den-like environment, and he believed that he'd be safe from some unpredictable, marauding 4-year-old boy. And so when I closed the distance and he backed into that corner and suddenly realized that he had no place to go, and so he became defensive and panicked. And you think, why would an agile adult dog feel threatened by a child? Well, that's human logic, and we're talking about what's going on in an overwhelmed dog's brain. And so he lashed out and took off. Well, of course, the injury was very minor. It was a scratch, really, more than anything else. And he was put to a test that he wasn't prepared for. And it wasn't fair to him. Sometimes people get bitten and other people say, well, he had it coming. He shouldn't have done whatever it was he or she did. Well, the reality is that our responsibility to our dogs is to set them up for success. And so if your dog has a history of being nervous around other people, well, don't put him into a situation where he might fail. People often believe that if we keep exposing a dog to visitors and unfamiliar people, that someday he'll get socialized. Well, that process actually takes place when dogs are between 5 and 12 weeks. When they're adults, that window is closed, and we need to protect them from overwhelm. Who wants somebody getting hurt or their dog freaking out when they're trying to enjoy the holidays or make a meal or whatever it is we're doing. And so if you have a dog who's shown any history of nervousness around guests, give him a break first. So before the guests arrive, put that dog in another room. And if you've withheld her food that day, then you can use something like a food toy. This particular one is called a twist and treat, and it's made for, well, you can use it for canned or dried food. I prefer to use this with canned food. You pack the insides of it with the canned food, and then you screw it together only as much as, well, you want to make it challenging for the dog, but not too challenging. It has this funky shape, which is no accident because it's meant to be difficult for the dog to hold still, and the dog has got to manipulate it and work it to get the food out. And if the dog is hungry and food motivated, well, they're going to focus their brain and their paws and their teeth and their lips, and they're going to get that food out of there. And that really harkens to the canine innate behavior of survival in the wild. And our pet dogs they're programmed behaviorally and they're equipped physically. And if the rest of us got on a one-way mission to Mars and our dogs had to figure it out on their own, well, they actually would. They'd form up social groups and they'd pool their resources and they would scavenge. Oh, sure, they're predators and they'll eat what they kill, but in reality, most of the time they don't get that lucky, and so they're out there foraging and trying to find carrion. The more disgusting, the better. And if they come upon some carcass that's been picked over by a few dozen other dogs, and there's some hunk of grizzle in there that's maybe got just 2 remaining calories, and that dog is not sure when the famine is going to strike, well, they're going to get in there and they're going to get that piece of gristle, whatever it takes. And our pet dogs, I don't care how much great food you have stored in your pantry, that human logic does not impact the innate behavioral tendencies of your pet dog. So, in setting your dog up for success, you want her in that other room focused on doing what a dog naturally does, which is surviving. And if you food motivate her first by withholding her breakfast that day, put her in the other room prior to the arrival of guests and play some classical music in there for her, if you like, so as to diminish her ability to perceive the sounds of the visitors, and she's in there working at this food, well, she's in there enjoying herself. And have a few of these things loaded. I show this is called a twist and treat again. It is produced by a company called Pet Safe, actually, and this line of food toys, food dispensing toys, is called Busy Buddy, but it's only one of lots of different brands of food toys and puzzles. And, the best one for your dog is the one that your dog likes. So you might have to get a variety of these, and some are meant for dry food. And these things, you can try them out on your dog ahead of time, and have a few of them loaded. So you can go in and check on your dog while everybody is party-hardy in the other room. And if she's doing fine but has finished the food toy, then have another one ready for her. So that if you do this enough times when you have visitors, whether it's a holiday or just some other time you have guests, even a repair person comes, you want your dog to think, you know what, I was just put in this other room and maybe something good's about to happen. And, I think I hear somebody showing up at the door and, here's the food toy. And this becomes part of your dog's routine so that when they realize that other people are in the home, that's a very positive emotional association for your dog, rather than a freak out and overwhelm and possibly some 4-year-old kid cornering your dog and you're not paying close enough attention. Which brings me to one more important point. Well, a couple more important points. If you're watching this right now, maybe you would put on your computer where the heck you are. And by the way, Ann, it's great to see you, and thank you for showing up. Ann from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Happens to be my excellent sister-in-law, who doesn't have a dog. She has a cat. But I'm delighted that you're watching. And so if you like what we're doing here, hit the wow button. Anyways, I hope that what you're going to do going forward is make it easy for your dog to be a dog. And for example, you have a cat, and your cat happens to be a little bit nervous in these cases. Charlotte, she's a very sweet girl, but more excitement around the home. She has a history of getting a little bit wiggy, and rather than make it too challenging for her, what I'm going to suggest is if you have guests over, put her in the other room, and cats are happy to have food toys. In fact, they make them for cats, and they make these twist and treats in much smaller sizes intended for cats. But sometimes what I encourage people to do is have a couple different sizes. If the dog likes the twist and treat, then have a few of them. And sometimes cats will do better with a great big one like this. It's all very individual. So you just want your pets to enjoy doing something on their own that is species-specific behavior, and not be at risk of freaking out, or worst of all, at risk of somebody getting injured. So going forward on this thing, what I'm going to suggest that you do also is that you take your pet for a lot of walks if it's a dog, or play hunt and pounce games with your cat, so that during the holidays when you're busy doing other things, and, I titled this thing, Pet Angst, Naughty or Nice, on the holidays. Well, the reality is that you might not have as much time. So you might have to carve out a little bit of extra time during the holidays to do some extra play with your pets. There's this old saying, a tired dog is a happy dog. Well, it goes for cats too. And thank you for that comment. I remember I passed along the suggestion to you at one point about food toys for Charlotte, and I'm delighted to know that she likes them. But again, cats they're physiologically different than dogs, and naturally they eat at least 3 or 4 small meals a day, where dogs in the wild, and our domestic pet dogs are equipped for this behaviorally and physically to go 4 or 5 days with nothing. And when they come upon that carcass, they do what we call binge and gorge eating, which sounds like human behavior on the holidays, but they naturally do that. And I'm not suggesting dogs are, be starved for 4 or 5 days before you have your holiday guests so they can have a food toy. But please don't be concerned that a dog who hasn't eaten in 2 or 3 hours or 12 hours is starving to death like one of us would be. They are different. Now, cats, on the other hand, again, they need to eat at least a few small meals a day. And so if you have a cat and you're expecting holiday guests and you just don't want your cat to be freaked out, then my advice is withhold food for 6 or 8 hours, and that cat's hungry, and that cat will enjoy her food toy rather than freaking out. Now, I'll tell you something else that I really want to do going forward with these Facebook Lives, is I want to give topics that people are interested in. So if you go to my Facebook page, which of course you're on right now, I'd like you to send me your suggestions, the kinds of issues that are important to you. And I want to address those things and improve life for you and your pets. Because, mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So if you're a pet parent and your pets aren't happy, everybody needs to have an improved quality of life. And so I'm interested in topics. We're going to do our next Facebook Live next week, Thursday, the 27th at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. I'm hoping that it being 2 days after Christmas, more people will have time to participate in this thing. And if you have any other suggestions, like times of day, I would be delighted. And if you find that this is a great topic, well, by all means, I want to hear more about it. Other kinds of things that I suggest that people do on the holidays is, don't let food be too available. Dogs have been known to counter surf and pull a turkey off the counter, and of course they eat those thin-walled poultry bones. And poultry bones, of course, they're a big no-no for dogs and cats, because unlike big beef or pork bones, birds, even flightless birds like, domestic turkey, they've got thin-walled bones because they have to be lightweight, because they're actually supposed to fly. And they're easy to break and splinter. And back in my years in emergency medicine, I've done plenty of intestinal surgeries to take bones out. So let's avoid that. The truth is, my work involves cleaning up the disasters of pets who have behavior disorders now, and they're not all preventable, but, well, I'll tell you what, if we can reduce the risk of these problems, or the physical issues like swallowing all manner of things they shouldn't be eating, I would love that. And Michelle, thank you, by the way, for coming in, and thank you for your positive comment and that nice heart. You give me the kudos when I'm doing it right, but I'd be delighted to hear when you'd like something done differently as well. So, of course, the big thing most people are aware of is the chocolate. Milk chocolate is a problem, but dark chocolate, baker's chocolate, is frankly a medical emergency. In fact, even the milk chocolate should be considered that. But, when those dogs, cats generally don't eat chocolate, by the way, but when cats swallow that, or dogs, swallow that stuff, it is a relative, what's called methylxanthines are what's found in chocolate. It's the same family of substances that's found in caffeine, very similar. And we humans, of course, have no real trouble with it. But a dog who gets a good blast of this stuff can seizure. And they get enough of it, and they can start having liver problems. So if that mistake gets made, don't do the wait-and-see approach, because if you've got a dog who starts getting agitated or even seizuring, it's still treatable, but it's so much better if we get these things in the emergency room before that kind of stuff happens. And the same is true with, eating turkey bones, for crying out loud. It is much better to get that dog into the emergency clinic, or the cat for that matter, and they can safely induce vomiting and monitor the pet and make sure that dehydration isn't a problem and get everybody back home safely. It's embarrassing when they get into stuff that most pet parents ought to know better. Well, in reality, in veterinary medicine, anybody who's been in this line of work very, very long are, we've seen most of it. And good doctors and staff are not judgmental. We just realize that, those things happen. And so we work with it. I had a case in my exam room for a behavior consultation just last week. Folks were doing just about everything wrong. And, we don't see it that often. People make mistakes, and many people are doing some things right, and I'm quick to point out what they're doing correctly so they can keep doing that, and then I tell them what things that they can do to change. But these folks were doing a lot of things wrong, and it's important that don't be concerned that the doctor is going to be judgmental. And if your veterinarian or the staff is, then go some other place, because we need to bring out the best in pets and their people. And so telling people that I saw last week about the shock collar that they were using, I just explained why that causes more trouble, and that I'm going to give them better methods that are going to be more effective, and it's going to improve their relationship with their pet, and let it go at that. So if your veterinarian or staff doesn't handle things that way, and I've been in practice for a long, long time, and so we just don't do those things. And so please don't be concerned that you're going to get judgment when you go to the veterinarian with a problem. You think, gee, I should have known better. Get it taken care of anyway, and find another veterinarian if somebody doesn't treat you that well. These pets, they're mighty special to us, and I often hear people say, well, my dog or my cat can sense my feelings. They seem to understand my emotions. Well, they do, but they don't really do it by sensing. Dogs in particular are such a highly social species that they are watching us with one eye almost all the time, and they're reading our body signaling. And so when we're calm, you're going to be setting your dog up for success. So if you're having a stressful holiday season, and I know that's a problem for a lot of us, then spend more time with your dog and play more with your dog, and give your dog or your cat food toys or, feathers on a string or other hunt and pounce toys so that they can take a break. One of the best things I like about my pets, and maybe I'm having a kind of a difficult day, and Miss America here just wags her tail and jumps around and wants to go for a walk on the irrigation ditch, and I look at her and I smile, because she does me good. She does more than entertain me. She actually sets an example for me sometimes and sets me up for success. And so get that from your pets. And if they need special care, give them their special care, and be a good example for each other. I mean, we can mean so much to each other, and just some cuddling and avoiding difficulties is a great thing. And Michelle, thank you for your comment about my dog. when we got her as a puppy, she was, I think, about 8 weeks old, maybe 10. And we picked her out of the litter, not because she was so darn cute, but because she bonded to us right away, and we thought she'd be a wonderful dog. And, well, she's turned out great. She's 11 years old now. But it wasn't long after we got her that everybody else in the family calls her Maddie. I call her Miss America because she's cute and perky. And I think she's just the greatest. So for me, she's Miss America. And Karen Auld just came on, and thank you very much for tuning in, and I really appreciate it. And so, again, next week on Thursday, the 27th, at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to do holiday disasters and near misses. And we're going to talk a lot more about the toxic issues like the plants and the food, and if you encounter that stuff, what you ought to be doing about it right away. You know, the first aid stuff, not just the prevention, but pets are going to chew power cords, and they're going to get into some of this stuff. Some dogs will drink you put down a mixed drink on the floor and a dog will drink it. Well, that can be dangerous. And cats in particular, they get very, very, it's a very risky thing for cats to have ethanol, which is ethyl alcohol, grain alcohol. That's the stuff in beer, wine, and liquor. So we're going to talk about all of those things. And I hope that, if you like this thing, you'll hit the wow button. You'll leave comments. And if something comes to mind later where you want me to address a particular issue, by all means, put it in there, and I'll get to it. Thank you again, and I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday. I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel, and this is Miss America.